Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan set that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. The New Mutants, number 7 from 1983. This issue takes place right before X-Men 172. I always do everything in reading order. So I have a New Mutants playlist, I have an X-Men playlist, and I have an X-Universe playlist that has absolutely everything. I just completed also the Wolverine Limited Series. That's all in there. I also have a playlist just for the Wolverine Limited Series. I got playlists all over. Feel free to check that out. And so here we have a cover here. One more muty trick boy and your mama dies. So we've got oh my god, Sunspot here and Cannonball here, covered by Bob McLeod. And so this is Sunspot's mom. So this guy looks just menacing. So what's going on? Because our previous issue ended up in a cliffhanger. So flying down to Rio. Stan Lee presents the last pulse-pounding adventure of the New Mutants. Oh, sorry, latest, not last. Brought to you by Chris Claremont, Sal Buscema, Bob McLeod, Tom Orzechowski. He should be the highest paid letterer because this guy does incredible work with one of the wordiest individuals that has ever written a comic book here. Louise Jones, future Mrs. Simonson, editor, and Jim Shooter is editor-in-chief. So, we are going to get a narration of what happened. And normally I skip these things, but in this case, because where we pick it up, and again, I have a playlist for the New Mutants, so feel free to check that out. Because it just tells us in writing what happened. I'll read it here. So, he remembers the flash of the explosion, the ground collapsing beneath his feet as the cliff face shattered and fell into the sea. His mutant strength as Sunspot saved him, enabled him to smash boulders big as houses before they crushed him, and later, after he hit the water, stay afloat and reach the shore. A cry for help led him to Sam Guthrie. Stunned and floundering, he didn't know how to swim, especially in this rough California surf. And throughout the rest of the night, the New Mutants made their way to safety. So he's sitting here in a cliffside. You can see he's kind of getting wet from the splash of the water. All save one. In retrospect, it had seemed to Roberto da Costa like the end of the world. For his teammate and friend, Shan Koi Man, he now fears it was. So it's everyone except Shan. So poor Sunspot is all wet here. And so here come the rest of the New Mutants coming. As I mentioned, I have a playlist. So they call out to him. He says hi. And Danny says, "Where have you been? We've been looking all over for you." And Sunspot says, "I wanted some time to myself to think. I didn't mean to upset you." "Berto, you're soaked," says Danny. "Here, take my jacket before you catch a cold." And he says, "Obliged, Danny. Thank you. Is there any word, Sam?" And Cannonball says, "Nope, the X-Men continued to search after we went to bed, and Professor Xavier's been trying telepathically to sense Shan's thoughts, but everyone's come up empty." And Sunspot says, "It's been days. I suppose that means there's no hope." And Wolfsbane says, "Don't say that. There has to be hope. There has to be. Shan cannot be dead." So one of the best things he does, is he tries to put the the dialect in his writing. So she is from Scotland, um, or as my daughter says, Scotland. So he tries to give her, like, if you look here, there has to be hope. There has to. Shan canna instead of can't, or just cannot be dead. So, and then she continues, "Oh, Danny, how do we tell her wee brother and sister what will become of them?" So, I like this. I like this panel here. Sort of borderless. Very nice here. And so they continue here. The professor sent us after you, Bobby. I think he figured we could use the exercise, which is why he didn't simply mind call. Some heroes we are, Sam? And so we didn't even catch the bad guys. Shan's killer got away. And not for long, pal, says Danny. And of course, we have the X-Men. So the reason that this issue is before the other ones is because the X-Men do go for to Wolverine's wedding in Tokyo. So, and so Professor X says, "We have checked every local hospital and police station, Professor." And Xavier says, "Thank you, Colossus." And Nightcrawler says, "Here come the kids. I'll teleport over with some hot cocoa." And he appears, and of course, Wolfsbane's like, "The demon!" And of course, Wolfsbane was raised very conservative, very religious. So, and it's kind of funny because Nightcrawler is a Catholic, so. Kurt Wagner is many things, Fraulein, but hardly that. I'm as human as any of you. Here, Robert, this should warm you up. You look like you needed. And Storm says, "I wish Wolverine was here. We could use his tracking abilities." Of course, he is still in Japan, where the X-Men will meet him in the next issue of X-Men. So I do the X titles every single day. So I flip flop between X-Men and New Mutants, the Wolverine limited series. So everything's done in reading orders. Like I said, if you want, like I said, I have a playlist with everything here. And Wolfsbane says, "What about me, Miss Storm? In my wolf form, I can follow any trail." And Storm says, "Perhaps so, Rain, but he has far more experience. He could recognize clues you might miss." And Sunspot says, "Why was I summoned, Professor? Is there news?" And Xavier says, "A sort, Roberto. There's someone here to see you." And he says, "Who?" "Me." And I love this. "You!" It is such a comic book trope here. This is his mother, and the two hug here. "But if you're here with the X-Men, you must know that I'm a mutant." And she says, "Your father wrote and told me. I needed you then desperately, especially when Juliana was killed. That would be his stepmother." And the mom says, "I'm sorry, Berto. I was on a dig in the middle of nowhere." And he says, "You always were. I'm an archaeologist. It is work I love." And Sunspot's like, "More than me, sometimes I think, or father." And she says, I came as soon as I heard, as quickly as I could." And Xavier's like, "Roberto, your mother will be leading an expedition to the headwaters of the Amazon. She invited the New Mutants to accompany her. I think that's a splendid idea." And he says, "What about Shan? We have to find her." And the Professor X says, such a job is better left for the X-Men." And Sunspot, who has a temper, says, "She was our friend. We can no more desert her than she could Danny when Danny was Viper's hostage." And Xavier says, "You've done all you can." Who are you to give us orders? It's your fault she's missing or dead. By the way, Xavier can walk. He's going through that pain, so he spends a lot of time in his wheelchair. So, even if you follow, you do know that he has recently gained his ability to walk, but spends a lot of time in his wheelchair because he feels pain when he tries to walk. So he's trying to get better at it. So anyway, Sunspot continues, because you were too busy shepherding Team America when you should have been helping us. I love the red here. And Xavier says, I am a master of the school for gifted youngster, Roberto. I am your teacher, and as such, so long as you're my student, you owe me the last word and your obedience. And then Sunspot says, if that is so, perhaps the time has come for me to quit. And then off he goes. And Nightcrawler says, was it wise to provoke this confrontation? And Colossus says, what harm could it do to let them stay? And Xavier says, the situation, Shan's disappearance, isn't as simple as it seems. The moment we arrived, I sensed a residue of a powerful and malefic psychic entity. I already know who that is, but I will hold who it is, because it's Chris Claremont likes to leave breadcrumbs, and things don't always get resolved. There's a big picture here, so it'll take a moment before we get there. And Xavier continues here. I am convinced Shan is alive. I would have felt her death, but the entity that attacked her may strike again. If that happens, I want the New Mutants far away, out of danger. And Professor X continues, despite their youth, they are as courageous as you X-Men. If they knew my suspicions, they would move heaven and earth to save Shan, whatever the cost. I will not place them at risk. And Professor X finishes here. For the moment, it is best they think Shan dead, and me, and me a heartless martinet. But they hate me. They may hate me, but at least they'll be alive. A martinet would be someone like that controls puppets with strings and stuff, or just a puppeteer is just another word here. So I love the screen tones being used here. And of course, Sunspot, as I mentioned, he is temperamental. He gets this boulder and shatters them. And he's like, for all my cursed power, I could not save them. They were good people with so much to live for. Why did they have to die? It isn't fair. It isn't fair. And here comes, I almost said Sunspot. Here comes Cannonball. So what else is new? I warn you, Sam, do not mock me. And Cannonball says, when my daddy died, Bobby, at first, I didn't believe it. I thought he was playing a joke, holding his breath or something. And then later, I hated him. We had so many plans, him and me. And so he says kind of what he was going to do here. So he was going to go to school, make something of himself. But his dying finished that dream. He was the man of the house and had to support his mom, brothers, and sisters. And Sunspot's like, you talk in circles, Sam. Get to the point. As I mentioned, Roberto is very straightforward, direct. And so Cannonball continues. You said it yourself. Life isn't fair. Not to you or anybody or anyone. All a body can do when he's thrown a curve is cope as best as he can and keep on living. And he says, Sunspot, we do what Xavier wants. Is that it? We behave like good little children and forget Shan ever existed. And Danny's like, don't be stupid, Berto. Of course we don't. But in this case, Xavier's right. If we stay, he and the X-Men will spend as much time worrying about us as looking for Shan. And she's what's important. And, oh my goodness gracious. I miss her, Danny, says Sunspot. We all do, Hotshot. Come on. Your mom's waiting. So, here's the thing. The X-Men don't search for her. At least Not at the moment because they get stuck in Japan, which we'll be covering here. So it's been a week later, and we are in Rio de Janeiro, which is in Brazil. And so they show up to the house. Of course, Roberto's very rich here. And so here comes the butler. And so and so the butler says, pleasantries to the owners, like, oh, we missed you, and the husband will be joining you for dinner. He's in Sao Paulo, and then he tells the people that dinner will be at 8, and formal wear is expected, if at all feasible, because he sees that they're poor, and look at them. And look how he looks at them. And Danny's like, we like you too, Buster. So, all right. So later that night, they're having a real fancy dinner. I tell you, look at Sam. He looks very uncomfortable. I tell you, drawing mundane stuff may not be fun, but it really shows Sal Buscema's chops as an artist, because everybody wants to draw the action and nobody wants to like spend time. I mean, he had to have used photo references for a thing like this. So Roberto's dad asks Danny, "It is then you met Roberto, right?" "Yes, sir. A sad time that was for us and the Sandoval family. Why is your friend not with you?" And the wife says, "She is one I told you of, Emmanuel, the girl who was lost." I'm sorry, the ex-wife. And he says, "Forgive me, child. I should have realized. So, my darling, where are you gallivanting off this time?" Or maybe she is still married and just had a girlfriend on the side. I know that they're so either separated or divorced. And Berto's like, nothing has changed. They're as hostile as ever. And so, of course, he's like, you're off to doing dangerous things. And so, it's a dangerous journey into unexplored territory. Yet you plan on sending geologists to that very locale. I'm a businessman. I'll send my people anywhere where there's profit to be made. So... And so she says, why? What does it prove that? What does it gain? We have more money than we can ever spend, Emmanuel. What do we need more? And he lights up a cigar and says, thus speaks a woman who has never been poor. My wealth, earned with my sweat, my blood, paid for this house, the food we eat, the clothes on your back. Would you rather we lived in a favela shack in the hills as my parents did? What did Roberto be a half-starved beggar boy? And the wife says, I would rather we be happy. And he's like, I am happy. And so we got the New Mutants here thinking. Sam is like, the stuff itches, because of course he's having to wear a tie. He says, poor Bobby, my folks had their fair share of scraps, but nothing ever got this nasty. And Rain here says, we should not be here. 'Tis not right for outsiders to hear such words. Berto looks so embarrassed. I bet he feels awful. And Danny's like, that's what's really sad is that they still love each other. It shows in little gestures and little looks and gestures when they react without thinking. And Roberto says, stop it, both of you. In mercy's name, shut up. Don't you see it? You're tearing me apart. But he's thinking it, not saying it out loud here. And so she says how much of the deforestation of the rainforest is happening. And he says, it is progress. And she says, madness, you mean? And he says, I always knew you to be an idealist, Nina, but I never realized till now you were also a fool. Good night. He looks, the way he's drawn, he reminds me of my grandfather. My grandfather had a little bit more of a widow's peak here, but Very, very similar. The mustache, the whole shebang. So the next day they're having a carnival outside here, and look at Sam here. So he gets a kiss, and look at him get flustered here. And Rain is like, he should be ashamed of himself. And so, all right. Um, so here, Denny asks Bobby here, Berto, you got a minute? I've been meaning to ask you, are things okay at home? Dinner got kind of rough last night. Is there anything we can do? And he says, pray for a miracle, Danny, but don't hold your break. And so here, his mom says, "Hey, if you want to be a part of the carnival, this is the place to start. By the way, whatever costume you choose, you'll be wearing tomorrow. You'll be wearing tomorrow to the governor's ball." So, all right. So they go in here, but they are being watched apparently. So, all right. So here we are, and look at Danny. So, and Sam here like a swashbuckler, and Roberto kind of looks like Conan. And so he says here, "Hey, you are wanted outside. A chauffeur," and he goes, "Oh, probably sent by my husband. Thank you." And so they're speaking here in Portuguese. That's what this is. And she says, "Get your street clothes on, children. I'll be right back." But she's kidnapped. You can see it's the Hellfire Club, or members of the Hellfire Club. So they throw her in the car here. Of course, Cannonball saw it, so he goes outside. He is invulnerable while he is in that in his powers, and that's good because he's hit by this. I was gonna say machete, by this axe, and we saw in the cover that who it is. And it is a new character, and I don't even know if he ever appeared after this, but he hits this, breaks the building, of course, it comes tumbling down. And out come the new music again, nice screen tone here. And then he goes, something hit Sam. He's buried, we've got to get him. And Roberto's like, what about my mother? The villains are getting away. And Rain's looking back, he goes, don't fret none about your mama, boy, she's in good hands. Mind your manners, you don't get hurt. And he's like, who? And Bobby's like, blessed saints, I'm Axe. What a name. You mess with me, you be chopped down to size, you dig? So I love this panel. This looks really good. Borderless. I love it. And so Sunspot gets his power, and Axe must have powers of his own, super strength here. And so Danny tries to use her powers on him, and Axe says, "They told me about you, about, they told me about you and your power engine." Oh my goodness. Trouble for you is Axe don't scare. Goodness gracious. All right. I'm not very good at doing the dialect thing. I apologize. So he knocks off Daddy. You can see a big slap here. Love this. She goes down here, and here comes Rain here. You running, little girl. Smartest move I've seen all day. Don't see why the boss was so worried about you chumps. You are you easy pickings for me. So he goes and gets in the car, and Cannonball kind of digs his way out of that mess. He says he's a little too groggy to go after them. And unfortunately, by the time he's able to, they'll probably have a huge head start. So he's going to go check on the others instead and figure out the next move. And so he calls out for Danny and Bobby here. And then he's like, the thing is, what does the Hellfire Club want with Mrs. DaCosta? Are they trying to get us through her? And where is Rain? And he's like, Mrs. Goulart, call the police, tell them what's happened. She's like, my shop is ruined, who'll pay for the damage? And he's like, my dad will. And it's Rain on a mine call. She switched to wolf form, and now she's following their trail. So, all right, so you nice another nice here, and this is where they're at, and the New Mutants are here. And so Sam here is like, hey, let's call the police or go in themselves. And Bobby's like, no, Sam, not yet. Hellfire Club's operatives are killers. If we go in half-cocked, Mother could be killed in the crossfire and confusion, just like Juliana was. I won't let that happen again. And Danny's like, let me contact Rain through the side link here. Again, love the screen tones being applied here. And so you can see her kind of going in there, and we can see the Hellfire Club and the wife here. And Danny says, your mom's in no danger, Berto, unless they're cornered until dawn when their employer arrives to decide her fate. That means we dare not summon the police. It's too risky. And Sam says, too bad your hero, Thomas Magnum, that's from the show Magnum P.I., isn't available. Bobby, I bet he'd know what to do in a jiffy. He says, of course. Why didn't I think of this idea before? It's a great idea. He snaps his fingers. And there's a howl, and they're like, what is that? And then Axe is like, the wind, chump, or a dog looking for a little lovin'. You clowns are pathetic. I was told I'd be working with men, not a bunch of winks, spooked by their own shadows. And this guy says, get off our backs, Axe. This brilliant hideout of yours is haunted, and according to legend, these ghosts kill. And Axe is like, do tell, ghosts bother me as much as people, and that's not at all. Search the place if it'll make you feel better, and if you got the guts. So off he goes. He takes his rifle and a flashlight here. So, and he's like, stinking mutie. One of these days he'll push me too far. So, and he's walking through, and he's like, oh, it got quiet all of a sudden. I never should have shot my mouth off. Why didn't I bring one of the others as backup? And here's somebody, what kept you, lover? And he's like, who said that? And of course, we've got an image here. Nothing to be afraid of, sweetie. We're just girls looking for a good time. You look like you'd enjoy that. We locked the doors and windows. How'd you get in here? And she goes, that isn't important, as he goes to them. After all, how often does a man come face to face with his heart's desire? What's happening? You're different. And it's like demons. And of course, it is most likely Danny using her power here, and he falls from the stairs. And so, and she's like, I've practiced pulling specific types of images, good and bad, back home in the danger room, but doing it in the field is a lot harder. And so the rest of the Hellfire Club arrives, and she's gonna try to use her powers to get them to back off, and then Rain is gonna take care of the other ones here. So, and here comes Danny, punches this guy. You can see Wolfsbane lifting him up and throwing him to the other guy here. So, and Wolfsbane's very proud of herself. She goes, did you see, Danny? I tossed those villains like they weighed nothing. And Danny says, I gotta admit, when Berto told us his plan, I had my doubts. If they don't work all the time, they don't work all the time even for Magnum. But we've done our part, Rain. The rest is up to the boys. And here comes Sunspot breaking through the wall. And Axe says, that's as far as you go, run, or I gut yo mama. So, and so we're almost done here. I think we got about 3 pages left. And Sunspot hits the ground here, the floor. He says, your threats do not impress me, mercenary. And you can see it kind of He loses his balance here, drops his axe. And here comes Cannonball. Your mind made up, Bobby? And Sunspot says, do your job, Sam. This is between me and Axe alone. So he's going to grab the missus here and take him. And she's like, what about my son? He'll be along directly. As soon as he's taking care of business. And here comes Sunspot. On your feet, Axe. Sucker, I'm going to make you regret you were ever born. You caught me by surprise before. No such luck this time, and just punches him. How is that the best you could do? And then hits him again, and then look at this one. This one's nice. A big pow on the panel. Great, very well done by Sal Buscema. And he hits there, and he's down. He says, it wasn't. Oh, very good. I like this. And so here we are in the last page. And Claremont lets us know it's been a few days since that happened. So this comic book has moved in quite some time here. So they're helping Pac with the supplies that they're gonna be needing here. And then he says, "What's the matter, Hotshot? You've been glum since breakfast." And Bobby says, "I don't think the dangers to my mother is over." And oh my God, sometimes it's just too many characters here. Sam says, "We'll look after her, Bobby. But if you ask me, she's the lady who can take care of herself. Time's wasting, children. Let's go." And so here, and we can see kind of who this is here. And so we have Sebastian Shaw here from the Hellfire Club. I'm not gonna try. This performance of your operative is hardly an inducement for me to join the Hellfire Club, Sebastian. Oh, sorry, it was not. It's the dad. You assured me they would deal with Nina. So it is the husband here. And Sebastian says, "You wanted her unheard. That created a problem. Also, I thought Axe capable of handling the New Mutants. We're still prepared to offer any assistance, Emmanuel." And he says, "That won't be necessary, my friend. Arrangements have already been made. Whatever happens, Nina's expedition will not succeed. She will not reach the Maderia." And then Sebastian says, "Even if that means the death of your wife and son." And so next issue, The Road to Rome. So we see that Bobby's dad is a piece of crap. So, yeah, it looked like Sebastian here, but it really wasn't. So, all right. New Mutants number 7 by Chris Claremont and Sal Buscema and Bob McLeod. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.